Gospel and Homily for the 5th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Year B. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. On leaving the synagogue, Jesus went with James and John straight to the house of Simon and Andrew. Now Simon's mother-in-law had gone to bed with fever, and they told him about her straight away. He went to her, took her by the hand and helped her up, and the fever left her, and she began to wait on them. That evening, after sunset, they brought to him all who were sick and those who were possessed by devils. The whole town came crowding round the door, and he cured many who were suffering from diseases of one kind or another. He also cast out many devils, but he would not allow them to speak, because they knew who he was. In the morning, long before dawn, he got up and left the house and went off to a lonely place and prayed there. Simon and his companions set out in search of him, and when they found him, they said, "Everyone is looking for you." And when they found him, they said, "Everyone is looking for you." He answered, "Let us go elsewhere to the neighboring country towns, so that I can preach there too, because that is why I came." And he went all through Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and casting out devils. The Gospel of the Lord. On one of the San Francisco streets, there is a funeral parlour with some beige curtains covering the window. Now, in front of the curtains, there is a sign, a rather funny sign really, which reads, "Why walk around half dead when we can lay you to rest for $100? Well, we may be walking around half dead and not fully aware of where our lives are taking us. Could happen to any of us. In the Gospel today, we see Jesus wasting no time in getting down to serious healing. The reference to casting out devils would seem to suggest to me that the majority of his healing was in the spiritual domain. But physical healing is also important because our invisible spiritual side is conveyed through the visible, that is, the body. In that sense, body and soul are one, or as the poet Juvenal wrote, "Mens sana in corpore sano," a healthy mind in a healthy body. Here, however, it's not about a healthy body for its own sake, which others can only envy, but how we can best use it for the good of our fellow man and woman. It is interesting to note from today's Gospel that as soon as Peter's mother-in-law was cured of fever, she wasted no time in preparing a meal for all present, of course including Jesus. This was her way of showing gratitude and getting on with the job. Some people, however, prefer not to get on with the job because in making a meal out of their illness, they wallow in all the attention they otherwise wouldn't get. I suppose there's a bit of the hypochondriac in all of us. However, all healing of the body, as we know only too well, is temporary. We are mortal beings and have ultimately to face up to the decline of our bodily strength and minds, and ultimately the end of our earthly existence. But what we do in the body will be central as to how we spend our eternity. What we do in the body is how we'll be judged. Scripture tells us that all the truth about us will be brought out in the law court of Christ, and each of us will get what he deserves for the things, wait for it, for the things we did in the body, good or bad. So, what we see with our eyes, what we hear with our ears, what we do with our hands, the words that come from our mouths, the places our feet carry us, will all determine where our lives are taking us. These 5 senses and faculties we can use for good or ill. If they are used to put love into action, then we are fulfilling the very purpose of our existence. Jesus drove out the demons. A demon could be described as any influence which limits our freedom to love and be loved. Now, as we know, Lent is just round the corner, and it's a time when we try to curb the excessive desires of the body which impede us from placing those same bodies at the service of our fellow man and woman. Through prayer and fasting, which are bodily exercises in themselves, we can remove the debris which blurs our vision of where our lives are taking us as we journey through life. The apostle said to Jesus, "Everyone is looking for you." Well, we don't have very far to go to find him, because he's right here with us in this Mass. Let us make the best of our time with him. Thank you all for listening, and God bless you all.